When I was 9 years old, my father was a Marine Corps officer stationed in Japan, and I got to spend a summer there. It was really cool because back then my hair was really blonde, and the Japanese people would reach out and they'd touch my head when I walked by them. And I got to really absorb and learn about a fascinating culture. When I was there, I took Judo from an instructor that didn't speak any English, but that was okay because using hand signals and gestures, we were able to figure out what Judo was all about. One thing I'll never forget is that the thing that I learned the most is that when you're facing an opponent and your opponent is chasing after you, you don't use your energy to combat that opponent. Instead, you use your opponent's energy to overcome him and to put yourself in a position of advantage over him. So for example, if he's running at you, you don't fight back. You don't put your arms up and push back. You grab his lapel and use his energy that's already in motion against him. You harness that and you throw him over your shoulder. And you put yourself in a position over him. That's exactly what influence and persuasion is all about, except they're not your opponents. The people that you're dealing with are not people that you are opposing. They're people that you're partnering with. But the principle of using their intrinsic energy to move them, that is the secret of becoming a successful recruiter or a successful salesperson. We can't force people to do anything against their will. What we have to do instead is find out exactly what that intrinsic motivation really is. When you get to that point, and watching this video, this might be it for you. Some people never figure this out in their entire career in recruiting. They think that their desk is all about them and it's not about other people. Your needs should be last. When you're talking with candidates and clients, your objective is to create a mutual satisfaction of needs between two people. If you put your own needs ahead of theirs, it's not going to work. Why is that? Because sharp, intelligent people are going to pick up on that. And when you're talking to lawyers all day, these are people that are successful. They can sniff out a phony in the first 20 seconds over the telephone, and they know when they're being sold a bill of goods. What you have to do is show yourself to your prospective candidate that you're someone that can be trusted, that you want to find out what they want and help them get what they want in your placement process. When you get to that point, then the business becomes effortless and fun, and it's pretty exciting. Now, Dr. Robert Cialdini is an expert on influence and persuasion. When I lived in Arizona, I'd read his book, and he actually lived out there, so I had a chance to get to meet him and his wife and became good friends of theirs when I lived out there several years ago. And his book is based on how do we get people to say yes. When you're talking with a complete stranger, there's a reason why they're going to say yes to you, and he studied that from a scientific perspective. Now, Cialdini says that the principles of influence are based on two things. First, they're based on our genetic makeup, how we're put together, what's going on in our heads. Secondly, they're built on social conditioning. You see, there are these rules that we follow in our society that aren't written down anywhere. If we follow them, we are accepted as members of society. If we don't, then we're cast out. Here's an example. If someone gives you something, what do you say? You say thank you. And if they don't say you're welcome, then that person is not playing by the rules of society, and we cast them out. The rules of influence and persuasion the same way. So the first principle of influence, based on what Robert Cialdini wrote in his book, Influence, Science and Practice, and you can also visit his website at influenceatwork.com. The first one is called the contrast principle, and that works something like this. You've got 3 buckets of water in front of you. The bucket in the middle is room temperature, the bucket on the right is hot, the bucket on the left is cold. You put your right hand in the hot water, your left hand in the cold water. You hold them in. You take them out. You now put them in the room temperature water that's the same temperature as the room. It's the same temperature, but the hand that was in the hot water feels cold. The hand that was in the cold water feels hot. You use that contrast to convey a point. If I show you 2 buildings that are next to each other, and one of them is old and one of them is new, and I don't tell you how old they are, I say, how would you describe these buildings? You would instantly know. One's old, one's new. You're not going to notice that one is brick and one is glass. You're going to look at the age of those. You're going to see what's the most obvious difference between the 2 of those to make a point. So when I was a kid, I used to sell stuff door to door. I used to go around the neighborhood. It's almost like I had a little route. I would sell disco records, costume jewelry for the band, candy, gifts, magazines, fruit, grapefruit every year at Christmas, turkeys during Thanksgiving. It's like I had this route. I remember knocking on the neighbor's door, and she said, "Hey, Scotty, what do you have for us this week?" And I said, "Well, Mrs. Jones, I'm actually telling you that we have a Scout Jamboree this weekend, and I wanted to see if you'd be willing to chaperone 20 Boy Scouts all day Saturday and all day Sunday. Are you interested? And you know what she said? She said, no, I don't think so. And I said, okay, well, you know, I'm selling tickets to the Jamboree. They're only $2 each. Would you be willing to buy 3 of them? Sure. Easy sell. I contrasted one thing with something else. When we contrast things, we make a point. Here's another example. And a lot of you may have heard this story before, that when my boy was young, I would give him an allowance of $5 for every toy trip once a week to Toys R Us. And that's it. If you find a toy that's over the budget, we're not going to get it. It has to be $5 or less. And so one day we're leaving to go to Toys R Us, what he calls Toys for Us. And he said, Daddy, today why don't we have a toy budget for this toy trip of $150? And I said, no way, you're out of your mind, no. And he said, well, how about $15? I said, okay, $15. I said, wait a minute. I agreed to something that I normally would never have agreed to. But $150 compared to $15, I thought I was getting a deal, even though I'd never gone above $5 per trip at that point. You see what he did, he watches some of my videos when I'm not around, and he learned stuff from me. I didn't know if I should be upset or if I should be proud. So what's the practical application for you as a recruiter? You're on your desk. You want to contrast 2 different things. Let's say you're talking with a partner of a law firm. And he says, I'm pretty happy where I'm at. But you know that there's something that he's not telling you. You sense that maybe this is someone that can go forward, that maybe there are some things about your client's opportunity that would be compelling to him if you can just get him on an interview. So this is what you say. You say, you know what, Gary? I'm not asking you to leave your job. I'm not asking you to leave your firm. All I'm asking for you is to open your mind up. Let's just say that you go to my client's office and you just spend 45 minutes for a brief, informal conversation with one of their leaders in their organization. Worst case scenario, it's 45 minutes out of your life. Compare that to the rest of your career. I think that's a pretty safe bet. What do you think? So what you've done, you've contrasted 45 minutes compared to the rest of his life. If you just said, I want you to take an hour out of your busy schedule, time that you don't have because you have competing time demands. No. We're going to contrast something small with something big to show them that 45 minutes, that's like 2 Seinfeld episodes. That's not a long time. I've made placements with that. A lot of you know this, but you don't know that there's a system behind it. You can use that as a tool to get more people to say yes. And remember, when you move people through the process, it's one little step, followed by another little step, followed by another little step. Finally, it's one little yes that says, yes, I'm going to accept the offer. When we think in terms of how can I help you get what you want, and we use these tools of influence as tools to move people, you increase the probabilities of more candidates going forward and looking at your opportunities.